One of the biggest surprises in Georgie and Mandy's first marriage was the introduction of Mary's new boyfriend, Joseph. For a show that revolves so heavily around the Cooper family's grief after George Sr.'s death, bringing in a romantic partner for Mary was always going to be a sensitive, complicated move. But Joseph's arrival is more than just a plot twist. It reshapes the emotional landscape of the show, challenges long-standing dynamics, and forces characters, especially Georgie and Missy, to confront feelings they weren't prepared to deal with. When Joseph first appears, he isn't presented as some grand replacement for George or a dramatic, attention-grabbing love interest. Instead, the show introduces him in a gentle, almost understated way. He's polite, composed, and respectful. He doesn't push himself into the Cooper family. He simply exists in Mary's orbit in a way that suggests he genuinely cares about her. That subtlety is important because the writers clearly know how sensitive this storyline is. They understand that audiences have spent years connected to Mary and her grief, and replacing George abruptly would have felt manipulative. So instead, Joseph is introduced as someone who understands that Mary has scars, someone who sees her pain and doesn't try to override it. But even though Joseph himself is calm and measured, his presence sets off waves of emotion around him. Georgie, in particular, reacts strongly, not because Joseph is doing anything wrong, but because the idea of his mother dating again hits him harder than he expected. It taps into his unresolved grief, his guilt about his own life choices, and his fear that moving forward means letting go of his father. His reactions make the storyline feel real. Many families struggle when a surviving parent begins dating again, especially so soon after a loss. Georgie's discomfort isn't a sign of immaturity, it's a sign of how deeply he loved his father and how unprepared he is for the next chapter. Missy handles the situation differently, but that's no surprise. She's more emotionally expressive and more willing to challenge Mary. While Georgie shuts down, Missy speaks up. She asks the questions people often avoid. Why now? Why him? What does this mean for the family? Her reaction shows how grief doesn't hit everyone the same way. For Missy, Joseph isn't a threat. He's a reminder that life keeps moving, even when you're not ready for it. Mary's feelings are equally complex. Her storyline with Joseph isn't about suddenly falling in love again. It's about finally reaching a moment when companionship doesn't feel like betrayal. She has been lonely, overwhelmed, and emotionally drained for so long that allowing someone in, even just a little, becomes its own form of healing. The show handles this delicately, showing Mary trying to balance her personal needs with her children's emotional turmoil. It's clear she doesn't want to hurt Georgie or Missy, but she also can't keep living frozen in her grief. Joseph himself is written in a way that avoids cliches. He's not overly charming or trying too hard. He's simply present. He listens. He lets Mary talk about George without flinching. And in doing that, he becomes someone who helps her carry the weight instead of someone trying to erase the past. His role isn't to fix Mary, it's to walk alongside her. And that makes him feel far more real than a typical sitcom love interest. What makes Joseph's introduction so impactful is the ripple effect it creates for the entire family. Georgie's storyline becomes more introspective. He starts questioning his own relationships, his responsibilities, and the emotional walls he's built. Missy's arc becomes more vocal and honest as she pushes Mary to navigate this new chapter carefully. And even Mandy, who usually stays on the sidelines of Cooper family drama, finds herself reacting to the mix of emotions swirling around Georgie. Joseph's presence forces everyone to examine where they stand and how they feel about moving forward after loss. Another layer worth noting is how the show avoids turning Joseph into a villain. That would have been the easier choice. Make him an outsider who threatens the family's stability. But instead, the writers make him steady, patient, and kind, which actually makes the situation harder for Georgie to reject. If Joseph were rude or dismissive, it would give Georgie an excuse to push him away. But because Joseph is genuinely good, Georgie has to face his real issue. He's not ready to accept change. And that is far more meaningful. Ultimately, Joseph's introduction marks a turning point for Georgie and Mandy's first marriage. It pushes the story beyond simple sitcom structure and into deeper, more emotional territory. It asks uncomfortable but relatable questions about grief, love, and the messy, painful process of rebuilding your life after losing someone who mattered. And it reminds viewers that moving on doesn't mean forgetting. Sometimes, it just means allowing room for something new. Mary's journey with Joseph is still unfolding, and it's clear the show is taking its time with this delicate arc. But one thing is already obvious. Joseph's presence is going to change the Cooper family in ways they can't yet see. And that change, while difficult, might be exactly what Mary needs to finally start healing.